Hello cats and kittens, Oriwa Jose, Yoroshiku. I'm back in the Crisis Corner, plugging again our Kickstarter for July 19th, Intrepid Volume 2, Pandora's Cage. Yes, it's a plug. And I'm plugging by way of info, giving you more info about the series, about what you'll actually be supporting. This is volume 2. We've come a long way. Volume 1, which is contained chapters 1 through 7, has been completed for a while actually. We're on to a new story arc, new creators actually on this book. We have a new artist, Bruno Lima, whose work you would have caught in chapter 7, the final issue of that story, of the Heroes and Villains story arc, was basically a transition over to Bruno Lima's work from Montos, who crushed 1 through 6. All respect and all love to Montos. He did a fantastic job on our first story arc. He had commitments, and we secured the work of Bruno Lima, who is a fantastic artist in his own right, and is doing excellent work, as you have seen or would have seen in chapter 7. Again, I say that's a transition arc, and that'll be a reward on a Kickstarter, our first reward actually. We'll get to that later, but yeah, the first story arc is done. Heroes and Villains. We're basically, in this video, I'm talking about the big bad, the villains for the second volume. The first volume, the villains were technically Thaddeus Payne, Celia, and Martin Garver, for all we know. But we never, in the fellow who was sitting in that wingback chair stroking the cat, which is classic villainy. Love it. Anyway, so those 4 are part of an organization of some sort, which we will get into later. But they were truly the villains of that arc because they were responsible for Nadia being turned into the weapon of mass destruction that she was, which resulted in all kinds of mayhem and destruction, and eventually the crew came together to stop her rampage. So that was the villainy in the first story arc. What are we on to now? Pandora's Cage turns the page on our villainy to 2 individuals, to be honest with you, which is classic comic book movie type scenario. You can't have just one villain. The villain for this arc will be Fugitive 212, who we haven't been introduced to yet, but we will be in our Kickstarter, which is, the Kickstarter is basically funding the 8th and 9th issue chapter, depending on how you want to say it, of the series. By the 9th, we would see our first, actually both of them, Fugitive 212 and Swu Rasputin. Now, who are they? It'd be a bit of a spoiler to say exactly who they are, but I will tell you this. I'm looking at the black sheets right now. The black sheets, let me back up a little bit. The black sheets in the second wave universe, the government keeps a list, obviously, of wanted felons and assigns them bounties. You can think of the bounties like in our black sheets is basically a combination of Naruto's bingo book and One Piece's bounty posters. Okay, so you have these villains who are on the loose, They're assigned bounties, and they're wanted. Fugitives and the bounty hunters of the SWU are basically just contracted heroes. Basically, they're not heroes in the sense that they're not superheroes in the sense that they have powers, but they're the fill-ins for the heroes that don't exist in our continuity at this time. So the black sheets, the top two fugitives on our black sheets are Fugitive 212 and Grigory Rasputin, respectively. Combined, their bounties are nearly $500 million, which speaks to the need to incarcerate these individuals. They are extremely dangerous for various reasons. We'll find out in the very first, in the very first chapter of Pandora'S Cage, we'll be introduced to both of them, if I'm not mistaken. If not 8, then 9 definitely. We'll both see them on the move. And they're both on the move simultaneously, so this is a big deal. You have two really big bads running around in the United States. No, not in the United States, technically, no. But they are active. And they will soon be active in the United States at the same time. So this is a huge issue, a huge problem for the law enforcement agencies that exist. As I stated, Fugitive 212, his bounty is $215 million, which is the highest federal bounty in the United States currently. And Grigory Rasputin, his international bounty, which includes non-federal bounty, $217 million. Wanted dead or alive, the both of them. Now, I won't get into Fugitive 212 too much right now, but Grigory Rasputin, who is he? Are we talking about the mad monk, the charlatan, mystic from the history that we know? Kind of yes and kind of no. Our Rasputin, the SWU's Rasputin, is less of a mystic and more of a my comparison would be if you're a One Piece fan, and you really should be, take Whitebeard from One Piece and combine him with either Apocalypse or Magneto from the X-Men. Either one of those two would do it. He's attempting to form his own state. Actually, he already has, but he's playing a long game. He's not the type, if you were to say, like, he's a separatist, but he doesn't hold a lot of animosity towards non-paranormals or those who don't have superpowers, but he's definitely about his people. And that's of interest because in the SWU, there is no Charles Xavier. There is nobody saying, equal rights for mutants, because their rights have been squashed for over 40 years. Paranormals are basically, they exist in like a Jim Crow type state. You can exist, you can walk around, but you can only use your abilities to a certain degree, as long as they don't interrupt or in any way society. I mean, if you're in your house and you can lift metal, yeah, you can lift metal in your house, but if you go outside, you can't. They're really, really subjugated, really, really. Now, you can have a job and you can live your life and make some money and stuff like that. You're not, segregated to that to too great an extent. But in terms of using your abilities, profiting from your abilities, or even generally using them in public, that's a problem. Because people have been traumatized due to an event that took place about 45 years prior to the start of the series, wherein the world actually was nearly brought to the brink of war by one paranormal and his actions. Therefore, he's condemned them all to being marginalized. So there's a political element to this too. So Rasputin's trying to change that. And he's, like I say, he's playing a long game. He's playing a long game against essentially the forces represented by Thaddeus, Payne, Celia, Garver, and the fella that's in the wingback chair stroking the cat. Those are two opposing forces playing chess. I think of the African proverb, when two elephants fight, only the grass gets hurt. So the grass, being the world, are going to suffer the consequences of these two being locked in a battle. A secret war, if you might say. That's terrible. Anyway, so there's that going on. So we're getting the beginnings of their struggle at this point, and it's going to go on into the future of the series. But you get a taste for what the stakes are, and at the end of this series, Rasputin's going to play his first card, and it's going to be troublesome, to say the least. His actions are going to lead to A, the Intrepid team actually forming, and B, the need for heroes to be brought back into society in the SWU. The ban on heroes will have to be broken based on his actions in this series. So that's all I can tell you about the two big bads for the series. Again, July 19th. We look forward to your support on our Kickstarter. There'll be more information coming, more general information, and just more of me and my cohorts who will be on soon, going on about stuff. So we look forward to talking to you, look forward to your support, and we'll see you later. Stay tuned.